It was one of those warm, easy afternoons, sunlight pouring through the windshield, radio playing something soft and familiar. I had borrowed my husband's car to run a few errands, just a quick trip to the store. Everything felt so normal. I wasn't looking for anything, just reaching into the back seat for my shopping bags. But then my hand brushed against something soft, something that absolutely shouldn't have been there. At first, I thought it was just a scrunched-up napkin or maybe a scarf. But when I pulled it out and saw the lace, the color, the shape, my breath caught. It was a pair of underwear. Lacy, bold, definitely not mine. I froze right there in the parking lot, fingers trembling slightly, mind racing through every possibility. A prank? Laundry mix-up? Some bizarre misunderstanding? But deep down, I knew. I think I knew the second I touched it. That cold, heavy weight settled in my stomach like a stone. I looked around, not even sure why, maybe hoping someone would pop out and say it was all a joke. But it wasn't. That tiny piece of fabric had just torn a hole in the world I thought I knew. And I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just quietly put it back. I sat in the driver's seat for a while, staring at the dashboard but not really seeing it. My hands were on the wheel, but I couldn't bring myself to turn the key. My mind was spinning, trying to make the pieces fit in a way that wouldn't break me. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe I was overreacting. But the truth is, when you've lived with someone long enough, you feel the shift before you see it. And I had felt it for weeks. The way he smiled, too tight. The way he avoided my eyes when I asked simple questions. The late nights, the emergency meetings, the way his phone never left his pocket anymore. I had brushed it all off, convinced myself I was being paranoid. But now, with that fabric still lingering in the back seat, all those little cracks in our life came into sharp focus. It wasn't just in my head. Something was happening. And now I had proof, just not the kind I ever wanted. I didn't tell him that night, or the next. Instead, I smiled. I kissed him on the cheek. I made his favorite pasta and laughed at his dry little jokes. But inside, I was building something. Not rage, not yet. Strategy. I needed time. I needed clarity. If he was going to lie to me, I needed to know how deep the lie ran. I needed to see the whole picture before I decided how to burn it down. Over the next few days, I watched him more closely than ever, but not in a way he could see. I studied his words, his tone, his patterns. Every love you felt rehearsed. Every glance at his phone made my stomach twist. But I didn't let it show. I became quiet in the most intentional way, not distant, just still. Like the surface of a lake before a storm. Beneath it, I was calculating. I found myself wondering who she was, what she looked like, if she laughed at the same stories I once did, if she believed he was hers. I hated that my thoughts went there, but they did. Because the second I found that underwear, I wasn't just betrayed, I was replaced, or so it felt. And still, I didn't confront him, not yet. There's a difference between reacting and responding. I chose the latter. So I smiled when he walked through the door, asked about his day, folded his laundry like nothing had changed, but everything had. I was no longer the naive, trusting wife he thought he knew. No, now I was something else entirely. I was watching, waiting. And deep down, a quiet voice was starting to whisper something new. You're not just going to walk away from this. Once the fog of that first discovery cleared, I knew exactly what I had to do. No more guessing. No more pacing the floor at midnight, wondering if I was wrong. I needed facts, cold, undeniable, time-stamped facts. So I started paying attention in a different way. Every ping of his phone, every muttered excuse, every time he turned his back to take a call, I logged it all, quietly. It wasn't hard, really. He had gotten careless, or maybe just too comfortable lying. He'd mumble something about a late meeting, and 10 minutes later, I'd see a text flash across his screen. Can't wait to see you again. My stomach would tighten, but I stayed calm. I was building something bigger than a confrontation. I was building a case, and not just for me, but for the version of myself he thought he could fool. Eventually, I installed a discreet tracker on his phone. Nothing invasive, just smart. I downloaded a voice recorder app, tucked it into the background, and hit record when he left it on the table during calls. I started capturing it all. The sighs, the fake alibis, the little pauses before he answered me. The truth was bleeding out from the cracks, and I was finally collecting it. I kept everything organized: dates, times, names. It became a ritual. After he fell asleep, I'd sit in the kitchen with a glass of wine and my notes, piecing together his second life like a detective in my own home. I wasn't just documenting betrayal, I was mapping his entire web of lies, and the more I found, the more detached I became. Not numb exactly, just sharper. There were photos too. One afternoon, I followed his location to a small hotel tucked off the highway. I didn't even get out of the car. I just waited and watched. And sure enough, he showed up. Not for a meeting, not for work, but with someone younger, prettier, clinging to his arm like she had any idea who he really was. I took pictures. Then I drove away. Calm, steady, like I was taking out the trash. At first, I thought I'd be shattered by all this. But something else took root instead: control. I wasn't crying in the shower anymore. I wasn't begging the universe for answers. I had them. And once you have the truth, it's no longer about heartbreak. It's about power. And I had more of it with each passing day. But I didn't just want to leave him. That would have been too easy, too clean. He'd cry a little, maybe say sorry, then move on with barely a bruise to show for what he'd done. No, I wanted him to feel it. To watch his carefully crafted world unravel thread by thread. His image, his ego, his precious reputation. I wanted it all exposed. Because some wounds don't heal with silence. They need to be carved into memory. I started digging into his work life. Turns out his company wasn't just big, it was rigid. Strict ethics, zero-tolerance policies, contracts that mentioned moral clauses, and code of conduct in bold print. I knew exactly what I was looking for. I went through his laptop when he was asleep. Emails, photos, private messages. He'd been stupid enough to use his company account for things no one should ever put in writing. And I saved everything. I created a folder on my desktop and labeled it with 2 simple words: for HR. Then I duplicated it and named the second one for her. Because when this came crashing down, it wasn't just about him. It was about making sure everyone saw what I had seen. Every lie, every secret, every filthy little detail. And as I closed my laptop one quiet night, I smiled for the first time in weeks. After that night, I became the version of myself he least suspected. The doting wife. Sweet, supportive, predictably harmless. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings, texted him midday with heart emojis, even bought his favorite snacks for when he came home. He had no idea that every gesture was carefully curated. I wasn't just playing a role, I was directing the entire show. And he was my favorite actor. Too blind to see the script was rigged. He seemed relieved, even smug, like the storm had passed. He started letting his guard down again, which made it all easier. I kept gathering things: more messages, voice recordings, screenshots of calendar meetings that didn't exist. I backed up everything in triplicate. One folder stayed with me, one was hidden in cloud storage, and one, just in case, was on a flash drive tucked in my jewelry box beneath the necklace he gave me for our 5th anniversary. Meanwhile, I got creative. I scoured his laptop during his golf weekends, searching for keywords that should never show up in a professional inbox. Miss you already. Loved last night. Even photos, shameless, reckless, time-stamped, all of it sent from his company account. I didn't need to embellish a single thing. He had written his own downfall in real time. All I had to do was press save. I started to imagine the moment it would all unravel, not with shouting or chaos, but with precision. So I planned something special. A dinner, private, elegant, intimate, just him, his parents, and his boss. I told him it was a surprise to celebrate his upcoming promotion. He beamed like a schoolboy, said he felt seen, God, the irony. He had no idea how closely I'd been seeing him this entire time. I picked the restaurant carefully, high-end, quiet, the kind of place where people lower their voices and wear real shoes. I sent out the invitations myself, kept everything warm and thoughtful, made sure his mother would come. She'd always looked at me like I wasn't quite enough. That night, she'd find out just how wrong she was. And his boss? He believed my husband walked on water. I couldn't wait to hand him the anchor. In the days leading up to the dinner, I rehearsed my tone, my posture, my timing. Not a single detail was left to chance. I even bought a new dress, classic, tasteful, powerful. One of those looks that says wife, but feels like verdict. And every time he kissed my cheek and said, "You're amazing," I smiled. Because soon, he'd remember those words for a very different reason. The day of the dinner, I set everything in motion like clockwork. He left for work humming, completely unaware. I spent the morning finalizing the flash drives, 2 of them, identical, labeled neatly, one for his boss, one for his mother. Inside, everything: photos, messages, voice memos, the receipt from the hotel, even a picture of that red lace underwear folded neatly on our marital bed. Evidence curated like a gallery of betrayal. That afternoon, I lit candles in the dining room and laid out the wine glasses, every napkin folded just right. I wore the pearls he gave me on our first anniversary, another touch of poetic justice. And when they arrived, I greeted them like nothing was wrong, like I wasn't standing in the center of a house built on firewood. He pulled out my chair. His mother complimented the roast. His boss chuckled at a story I told. And all the while, I waited. Not for the right moment. I created the moment. I watched him laugh, sip his wine, bask in the praise like he'd earned any of it. And as I looked around that table, at the people who thought they knew him, I felt something powerful rise inside me. Not rage, not even grief, just readiness. Because this wasn't the beginning of a breakdown. It was the calm breath before the strike. The room was glowing, soft candlelight, crystal clinks, polite laughter floating like music in the background. From the outside, it looked like the perfect evening. And I played my part flawlessly. I refilled wine glasses, I passed the bread. I nodded along as his boss praised his leadership skills, as his mother went on about how proud she was of her devoted son. I could feel the heat building in my chest, but I didn't rush. No, I waited for silence. When dessert arrived, chocolate tart, his favorite, I stood, slowly, deliberately. Every eye turned toward me, expecting some sweet toast, something loving, and in a way, it was. Just not for him. I cleared my throat gently and smiled. Before we raise our glasses, I said, I just want to thank my husband for all his hard work, especially outside this house. And for a split second, the words just hung there, suspended in confusion. He blinked. His mother tilted her head. His boss gave a polite chuckle, unsure whether it was a joke. I walked around the table, calm as a breeze, and placed one flash drive next to his mother's wine glass, then the other in front of his boss's plate. I think you both deserve to see the full picture, I said softly. No theatrics, no raised voice, just the cold, clean truth. And just like that, everything changed. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I've ever heard. His mother's hand hovered in midair, fingers inches from her fork. His boss stared at the flash drive like it had just bitten him. And him? He went pale, visibly, like the blood had drained right out of his face. I could see the gears in his mind locking up, trying to calculate what I knew, how much I had seen. But it didn't matter, because now they would see it too. I made sure everything was in there, I said, still standing. Messages, photos, timelines, even the hotel bills. It's all labeled, neatly. I looked directly at him then, my voice soft but unshakable. You left evidence in your car, I said. I left none in mine. His fork clattered against the plate as he dropped it. His eyes searched mine, begging for something, mercy, maybe. But I wasn't there to hand any out. His boss reached for the drive. His mother didn't. She just stared at her son with a look I'll never forget, part disgust, part heartbreak, and something deeper. Shame. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat back down, folded my napkin, and took a sip of wine. And in that moment, with all of them frozen around me, I knew. I had flipped the entire script. I wasn't the one betrayed anymore. I was the one in control. He tried to speak, mumbled something about explanations, misunderstandings, private matters. But it was too late. The silence around him wasn't just awkward now, it was condemning. His boss looked at him like he was filth under his shoe, no longer the golden boy he'd championed for years. His mother wouldn't even meet his eyes. She just sat there, lips pressed in a thin line, shoulders trembling with quiet rage. I didn't need to say another word. The evidence spoke louder than anything I could have screamed. Every lie he'd told was now spread out in digital form, impossible to deny or spin. And watching him squirm, watching his carefully curated persona collapse in real time, felt cathartic. Not joyful, just right, because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet dinner party with wine and truth served side by side. I stood again, calmly collecting my purse, sliding my chair in as if nothing unusual had happened. "I'll leave you all to it," I said, my voice steady. "I've already had my fill." And as I walked toward the door, I didn't look back. Not at him, not at his boss, not even at the woman who once called me family. That chapter had closed itself, and I was already thinking about the next one. It didn't take long. Within days, word spread like wildfire. The HR department didn't just review the flash drive, they launched an internal investigation. His messages violated every policy they stood for. His company image? Shattered. That promotion he was so sure of? Gone. He was escorted out of the building by security with a cardboard box and a face full of shame. No final meetings, no goodbye cake, just silence and a locked badge. His parents? Let's just say the holiday dinners won't be happening this year. His mother couldn't even look at me when I dropped off the final papers. She opened the door, cheeks hollow, eyes red, and muttered something about not recognizing him anymore. And I believed her. Because the man they thought they knew never really existed. He was a performance, one he couldn't hold together when the curtain finally dropped. As for his friends, the ones who toasted our anniversaries and sent Christmas cards, they disappeared one by one. Funny how loyalty works when power and charm vanish overnight. No one wanted to stand next to the man who lost everything. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't just break hearts, it empties rooms. And his was now echoing with everything he thought he'd never lose. And the woman, the one with the red lace and the stolen glances, she vanished faster than anyone. Once the job was gone, once the money dried up and the flattery stopped flowing, so did she. No dramatic breakup, no messy confrontation, just a quiet unfollow and a swift exit, like she was never there at all. I'd almost feel sorry for him, if I hadn't seen how easily he threw away what we had for something so empty. When I finally filed for divorce, it wasn't with tears or regret. It was with clarity, clean, surgical. I had every advantage. The documents, the evidence, the silence from his side of the courtroom. He didn't contest a thing. Probably because he knew if he pushed, I'd make it public, and he had already lost too much. In the end, I walked away with everything that mattered. Financial security, the house, my dignity. But more than that, I walked away with peace. Real, quiet, powerful peace. The kind you don't fully understand until you've had everything shaken, burned, and still managed to stand. He lost his mask. I found my voice, and when the ink dried on the papers, I didn't look back. Because when you've seen someone's truth that clearly, there's nothing left to wonder about. Weeks later, I picked up the keys to my new car. Sleek, quiet, fully mine, no shared payments, no hidden GPS history, no memories tied to the passenger seat. I slid in, turned up the music, and let the sunlight hit my face through the windshield. It felt like breathing again for the first time in months. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I reached into my bag and smiled. I had brought something with me, a brand new pair of lingerie. Mine this time. Soft, confident, crimson. I tossed it into the back seat without hesitation, letting it land where the lie had first been born. But now, it wasn't a symbol of betrayal. It was one of freedom. Because that car, that seat, that future, they belonged to me, and no one would ever mistake that again. As I merged onto the open road, wind lifting my hair and music filling the air, I whispered the last truth he never got to hear. She found what wasn't hers, and left him with nothing that was.